Good afternoon, gentlemen. We are going to be talking about the hidden collapse of men today. And the stuff that we're going to be talking about is stress, suppression, and self destruction. Now, I'm going to head on over to the group and make sure that we have video. Yes, I am live. Fantastic. Guys, we're going to get right into it. And can I hear myself? Absolutely. Perfect. Okay. So let's get into it. The hidden collapse of men, stress, self destruction. That's what's going on in today's society. I'm a coach, I'm a healer, I'm a speaker. My name is Michael Licoli. I co-own Danvers Wellness Center, and I'm also another business. I have another business in property where we rent out a property in Cape Cod because I'm in the area of New England. Um, what I teach is the process of the four pillars of healing the masculine. It's through the King's Table framework. I'm going to explain a little bit about that later on in this talk. But first, I want to give you kind of a little bit of my experience because I think it's extremely important for you to understand that I'm not speaking from perfection at all. I'm actually speaking to you as a guy who's literally lived the pain. I've had more mistakes, more breakdowns, and more silent battles than you could possibly imagine. And I know if you're like me, you've probably been there too. I think it's important for me to share my story with you to help you understand where I've been and why I'm doing the work that I'm doing today. And it's so extremely important for us men to come together in community and share that with one another and do this work. I was that guy. I was addicted to almost everything I was addicted to everything, not almost everything, right? To escape life, basically drugs, alcohol, sex, food, all of the things, work, phone, all of it. I've been homeless. I lived in my car for 3 months. I showered at a local gym for $10 a month because I wanted to feel clean once in a while. I lost my job and I got a job um, making Christmas tree ornaments for the yard for $5 an hour, cash under the table. Guys, I've been there, pain, but I'm not those things anymore. Those are just the experiences that shaped who I am today and shaped me into the strong man, the confident man that I am today that I can lead from. I chose to have those experiences be positive rather than negative, but it was after some time. Okay. So who am I today? Well, I'm all the things that, most men are, right? I'm a son, I'm a father. Some of us are fathers out there, right? I'm a partner, my girlfriend, I'm a brother, uncle, coach, healer, speaker, like I mentioned, a businessman. I own two businesses. I facilitate two brotherhood groups myself. I also facilitated retreats since the year of 2014. I've been doing that for a long time. And last year, in October 2024, I facilitated my very first men's only retreat, which was hugely successful. 11 of us men that got together and just shared that love, so extremely important. I grew up in a loving home, but that doesn't mean that I grew up with parents that knew how to guide me per se, right? I wasn't taught to be a man. My father worked an extreme amount of hours, and look, you had to put food on the table, but I didn't have the guidance to help me handle emotions, to know how to deal with the pressure, right? It was always that place of figure it out on your own, handle it. Don't complain about it, just do it. And figuring out on my own led me to all of those patterns and behaviors that I've talked about, the destructive, self-destructive behaviors. And we're going to get into that. And they lead to broken relationships, the codependency, um, all of the attachment wounds, the depression, the anxiety, the addictions, the years of chronic stress that I at this point survived because I put things in place. But I had to go through those challenges, those struggles to get here. I became hyper attuned to everyone else's emotions. I didn't want to feel pain, and I don't want anybody else to feel pain, but I was also super hyper vigilant about everything. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about. So if there's some people here listening, comment down below. Um, and just put the word in there. I'm listening. I'm listening. I didn't know who I was. I had no clue. And I kept looking for the world to tell me. And I was never looking on the inside. And eventually my body said, that's enough. You know, it couldn't take it anymore. All right, guys, we don't break down all of a sudden. I didn't break down all of a sudden. I broke down really slow, silently, okay, under the weight, under that pressure that I was never taught to carry in my life. And today, that's what I'm talking about. I want to break that silence. I broke it for myself and I want to help you break it too. Look, most men have no idea how much emotional weight we're carrying. All right. Because we're always saying that we're fine, right? We know we're stressed, but we're fine. We're hiding it, right? We bury it. The grief, the shame, the guilt, the fear, the failure, the rejections, the wounds of childhood, right? The fear of not being enough, all of those things. So we're carrying all that stuff. We're saying we're fine, but we don't understand that our body is storing it. It's storing every single ounce of it. And it starts to manifest physically if we don't deal with it. See, the body forces us to feel what our mind refuses to face. I was, look, I'm that guy who always said that I was fine, right? If you're listening, put down in the comments, I'm fine. Because you're not. We have to admit that to ourselves. I didn't have pain or anger or sadness. I did. Okay. I absolutely did. So my body stored that grief until it absolutely broke. All right. So I'm going to get into how do we release this pain, right? How do we deal with this trauma? Because I don't want it to be overwhelming for you. And I know it absolutely can be overwhelming for you. All right. So let's take a look at the animal world for a minute. Let's take a look at the wild because I love this analogy. When I talk to my clients about it, I get super excited about it because it's exactly what we should be doing, and animals do it instinctively. Okay. When they go through a traumatic event like being chased by a predator, like a lion chasing a gazelle, right? Here's what ends up happening. Say that lion misses it, it misses the gazelle. Okay, great. It runs off. Now the gazelle collapses to the ground. But before getting up, this is where it's cool, its whole body begins to shake and tremble violently, like literally just violently. This shaking isn't a fear response. It's not a response to fear, guys. What it is, it's the nervous system discharging the stress and that trauma energy from that experience. Again, animals do this instinctively. Why? Real simple, because their survival depends on it. If they don't release the stored trauma, their nervous system stays stuck in fight or flight. Pay attention here because most of us are stuck in that fight or flight syndrome. And those animals can't function. They can't eat. They can't reproduce. And they can't stay alert for that next lion coming around the corner, right? So what happens after that? What happens when they get up, right? Well, they just go back doing their normal daily thing, probably just grazing and stuff like that. They're calm, they're present, their nervous system is reset. This is literally how nature, how God, okay, designed us living human beings to survive the emotional shock. Our bodies are vessels, okay? Because of my experience at the beginning of this year, I know for a fact, I knew it before, but I know for a fact our bodies are vessels and we need to take care of them. Okay, and taking care of them requires us to handle these things when they come up, not to shove things down. Here's the problem with us humans. We shove it down. We're the only species that actually doesn't allow this natural release. We don't shake, we don't move emotion out of our body, we don't complete the stress cycle because there's a cycle to this. And because we think we've been taught that showing those things are kind of weird, right? Well, instead, what happens if we don't move that stuff out of our body in the moment? We freeze it, we suppress it, we shut it down emotionally, right? We pretend we're okay, the I'm fine, we man up, right? And we push it down and we move on. Somehow this process is better than getting it out of our system immediately? I don't think so. Look, and if the process is not completed, if that stress cycle isn't completed, here's what it becomes: anxiety, gut issues, heart palpitations, heart attacks, panic attacks, depression, burnout, chronic pain, shutdown, emotional numbness. Guys, I'm listing this stuff off because you need to hear this, because if you're going through these things right now, that's because your nervous system is so wound up that it has there's nothing else it can do for you. That's why you're constantly amped up and stressed out. You need to release. Okay? Now, human beings, men especially, we're really good at this. We store trauma in the body because we're taught not to release it, right? So animals shake, men basically swallow it down into their soul, and it does no good for us. And we do all of this alone. We isolate, we shut down, we hide, we numb out, like I've stated before, and we perform instead of connect. So we're high performers, right? So look, I'm a high achiever. I've gone through this whole process. It took me a long time to get to where I am today to balance things out in my life. But the isolation is killing us. So men don't die from stress. They die from the silence because we don't deal with the trauma, the event, the experience in the moment. We shove it down. We get really silent about it. We may intellectualize it and go, turn into logic or whatever it is, and then just bang. For some reason, we've dealt with it in that way. Look, our ancestors knew this process. Warriors had councils, circles, and tribes to help them with all of this stuff, to help them release. Shamans, okay, as a shamanic practitioner myself, I understand this process, being buried in the earth and allowing the process, that stress cycle, to take effect and allowing Mother Earth to take it from me was such an amazing, beautiful, emotional release, and one that I'll never forget, and one it couldn't be replicated, man. It was unbelievable. Okay, but we suffer. And that's the reason why we break, because we suppress all the stuff. So we got to take it from one point to another. We got to take it from talking about the pain to actually healing it. And I want to give you right now a step-by-step process. Okay, that framework that I was talking about. All right. And if you stay tuned and you comment at the end of this, I'm going to provide you with a workbook. Okay. It's a step-by-step process for us men because most of us get stuck. We only do the first part of the healing. We talk about it, right? Now, talking about it is valuable. It shines a light on what's wrong, but after a certain point, it becomes rumination. We repeat the story, we repeat the pain, we repeat the same emotional loop without ever changing anything in our lives. We're just talking about it. So we're ruminating. And rumination is mental. Healing, boom, boom, right here, guys. It's in the heart. This is where healing starts. We gotta do that brain heart coherence and match it up. So the talking's great, first step, and we're gonna bring it into the heart. Okay? So this is where most men get stuck. And healing requires that transition. It's extremely important. Now I want to give you a little bit of a story. It's a story that broke me open and brought me to this place. Okay? There was a relationship I was in some years back. It didn't just like hurt me, it absolutely destroyed me. Like a shell of a man, a shell of a human being. Not because she was a villain or something like that, but because she was hurting in ways she didn't know how to handle or how to face, right? But what happens when people are hurt? They hurt other people. Okay. Now I was hurt at one point too. So there was a hurt going back and forth. We have to understand this. We got to take some responsibility and accountability for our actions. All right. But here's what men most don't admit. Okay. And I had to admit it to myself. I allowed it. I was involved. I allowed that behavior to continue, not because I was weak, but because I didn't believe I deserved better. She never outright said you're not enough, but the message came through in subtle comments, withdrawals of affection, right? Sharp tones, disapproval, disappointment, comparisons, emotional torment, right? Because that's the mirror effect, the projection that comes out when somebody is hurting. And every time it happened, it didn't just hurt me in the moment. It triggered something a lot deeper inside of me. It was reinforcing the belief that I had already carried all those years, my whole entire life, that I wasn't enough. Okay. That relationship didn't break me. It actually revealed me. It brought things to light and I showed up for it. It brought my subconscious wounds into the light. So I went from subconscious to conscious. And that's that first step of awareness. It showed me exactly how little I thought of myself. Every moment of all the emotional torment was literally pulling my wounds, the old wounds, to the surface. The old ones from childhood, the ones I never expressed, the ones I pretended didn't matter. Okay? Now, here's the thing you don't want to face, most of you guys, right? As much as no one should treat like someone like that like a punching bag, I was also responsible for being there, like I said. Okay? I stayed because I was trying to prove my worth. I stayed because I believed I had to earn love. That's what I was taught. Okay? That's what I grew up with. I still felt like a little boy, desperate to be chosen. I wasn't strong enough to walk away, not at that moment, not just then, and not because I was weak, but because I was literally wounded. All right. That relationship became my wake up call. And one day, after a moment of emotional collapse, literally just everything came crashing down. I asked myself a couple of questions, and this was after a couple of months of journaling after we broke up. Why do I keep choosing the same woman, just in a different body? And what's the common denominator in all of my relationships? Those two questions. So let you sit with that for a second. Why do I keep choosing the same woman, just in a different body? Same characteristics, same type of personality, same type of things, right? Just they look different. What's the common denominator is the second question. Well, by now you already know what the common denominator was. It was me. I was the pattern. I was the wound. I was the unhealed version of myself, bringing that same pain into every single relationship that I went into. And the moment that I saw that truth, I got it, man. I understood it. Okay. Now, talking about my problems wasn't enough. Understanding them wasn't enough. I needed to stop repeating the story and start feeling and releasing the emotions underneath it. Okay. That relationship didn't just ruin my life, it redirected it. All right. It didn't ruin my life, it redirected it. You need to start looking at these things from a positive point of view. It forced me onto a path of real healing, guys, not by blaming her, but by finally taking accountability for my own wounds. Now, look, why am I telling you this story? Right? Because up until this point, basically in every single relationship, all I did was complain to my friends and family about the relationships I was in. I was just talking about the problems, ruminating about the problems, repeating the patterns, right? Getting into that space of constantly never doing anything about it, never making any real changes, right? So what happened? Well, I shifted. I shifted from talking about it to actually feeling it. Okay, this is where it became really important. I had to move from talking about the emotion to actually feeling the emotion. Now, that means something really important here. That means returning to the place in the body where the emotion is stored. Men rarely express their emotions when the pain originally happened. It's just the truth. We don't express it. We never actually complete the emotional stress cycle, just like an animal does. They complete it, we don't. And it remains trapped, stored in the body. And that's why this healing requires going into that memory, not just talking around it. You need to bounce back into that place where you can bring that emotion up. All right. You need to do it safely and intentionally because, guys, we all know that. Imagine, right? We're sitting there, we're talking about the experience, we're breaking up with somebody, whatever it is, and every one of us has gone through this. And we get into that place and we start talking about it, and then it's angering us, it's making us sad, it's hurting us again. And then we just shut down, we don't want to talk about it again. We need to stay with it. We need to stay with that pain because you have to move through it. Okay. This is what most men skip because they probably fear it. Okay. So you bring that place, you talk about it, like I said, you bring that right up. You picture that version of yourself who felt the pain in that moment. You allow yourself to step back into the experience of it all. You don't analyze it. Super important. You feel it. This is the bridge between the mind and body. Right here. You're thinking about it, you're talking about it. Nope. Now you're feeling it. That's where connection happens. All right. In this phase, you only do one job. You slow it down, you stay present. Okay. You allow the emotions to rise. All right. The emotion's going to come up, and it's going to come up from your system, man, from that stored place in your body, because that's where it is. It's stored in your body. And sometimes it's been there for a really long time. Don't tell me it hasn't, right? So when that emotion comes up, this is important right here. Okay. This is a big step because this is really step number one. You felt that pain. It's there. You need to sit with it. Now you need to sit with the pain until it surfaces. Now, that emotion, that old emotion, the fear, the sadness, the grief, the shame, the anger, whatever is there is going to begin to rise up. And most men in this moment are going to distract themselves or shut down in some way. You could distract yourself with, I don't know, your phone. You can distract yourself with work, porn. I mean, seriously, with anything, right? Drugs, alcohol. But you need to stay present because that's what healing requires, and you got to let it surface. Think of this phase as like opening up a pressure valve. You're not forcing anything. You're simply allowing it or allowing what is already inside you to be felt. Okay, you got to stay with it for as long as it takes. You can't rush the process, by the way. All right, this is a hard process, but you can't rush it, and there's no logicking your way out of it. All right, that's super important. All right, the next step is the expression, the release phase. All right, once the emotion comes up and it surfaces, it has to be expressed just like the animal expresses it through movement. They shake violently. Now, that's one of the ways that we can do it, but there's two forms I'm going to give you. All right, one is a subtle expression. It could just be crying, it could be shaking a little bit, it could be a sigh, a warmth in the chest, a sense of opening, something like that, a quiet internal release. You've brought it to the surface and now you're just staying with it and you're moving it out of your system. Some of us can do that. Now, that's because the body finally feels safe enough to let that go. All right. The second one is probably where most of us men need to be, and that's in the intense expression, the rage. This is deeper, louder, more physical. All right. And it looks pretty wild because I've been there. I've done it. I've worked with a lot of men who have done this. It's the yelling into the pillow, the pulling, pounding on the bed, the deep guttural growls that get in there, right? Into the belly, right? Crying extremely hard, shaking uncontrollably. You know, if you're on a practitioner's table and working with a coach, you could be literally thrashing on the table. Your breath could become hot or fast. You know, it could literally your temperature fluctuations, your body cold. I've experienced it all. All right. This happens when the body, when that energy stored is really big and your body finally has permission to release it. Nothing about this is wrong or too much. It's just what us humans were designed to do. We're designed just like animals are to shake after trauma, and we need to complete that cycle. Now, the last part, that last step before we finish this talk off is the integration. And this is where we just sit with it. You'll feel lighter, you'll feel clearer, more grounded, more calmer, more present in your body. Okay, this is that healing moment. I've had things where I've sat there, I've had moments where I've sat there for 45 plus minutes, just allowing that new emotion to integrate, that release, that new incoming energy. This is where you have to feel it. It's not a cliche, it's physiology, guys. Okay, so it's extremely important to do this. And I know everything that we talked about today, you know, the stress, the stored emotions, the relationship patterns, the breakdowns, the shutdowns, all of it. It all comes back to one truth. Your life is not going to change until you do. Not your partner, not your circumstances, not your job, and not your past. You need to make that change. And most men don't change because they've never been taught how to change. So we need guys in our life. Okay, we need a tribe of men. And I'm so grateful that Stephen has put this Force Man Brotherhood together because we're here, we're doing the work, right? And because I know that this is feeling overwhelming right now, I created something really simple. And this is where I want you to comment below for this workbook, okay? Something that gives you a starting point, something that you're going to finally be able to see like what's actually driving your reactions, why you keep repeating the same patterns, what emotions you've been avoiding in your life, you know, where the real wounds are in your life and how to begin releasing them safely. It's a Sacred Man's Workbook, the workbook, Sacred Man's Awareness Workbook. Wow, I feel like I need another sip of water here, guys. I covered a lot of information. So it's got a bunch of questions in there, deep awareness questions, okay, with a bunch of journal lines to get the thoughts out of your head. The emotional healing steps that we covered today in a simple layout. I laid them out really clearly for you. Okay, a repeatable process for moving from thinking about it to feeling to releasing. And I've also attached a diagram that shows clearly the process of the healing cycle for us men, going from the core wound to the trigger to the emotional response to the survival pattern to relationship outcome. Now, then it can repeat itself, or you can come into the realization stage and then the healing work that gets you into the state of being the true, authentic man that you're ready to be. So, if you're ready to stop repeating the past, your behaviors, your traumas, your patterns, and all those things, and start finding your life's purpose and why you're meant to be here and have great relationships in your life, well, then I want you to comment heal down below. Message me the word heal, connect with me, friend request me, and I'll send you the workbook personally, either by email or right on Facebook. Okay? Because healing doesn't begin when life gets easier, guys. Your healing begins when you finally decide to face what's inside. Okay. I thank you again. Um, and I really appreciate Stephen having us on. I know today's the last day of this Force Man Brotherhood gathering. I love it. Again, come and heal. I'll send you the Sacred Awareness Workbook, and I will also send you the 4 pillars of the King's Table framework that I work with my clients on. Have a great day.